This is Nick with Build Brothers Roofing. Started my digital inspection at 2452 Rutherford Road out here in Ramona. We always like to start our inspections underneath the eave of the house. So your eave of the home will consist of your fascia board, you then have your rafter tails, and then you have your starter board. And the reason why we like to start underneath the eave is that it gives us a really good idea about what kind of wood damage we can expect on this property. You can see that this fascia board has another board on top of it that's acting as a shadow board. I want to point out what the issue is with that, but we can see that we do have some moisture that's accumulating in a lot of these corners, and a lot of this shadow board is going to need to be replaced. I'm going to suggest probably we're going to end up getting rid of it and just replacing it with actual drip edge, but I want to show why. So you can see right here how a lot of this wood is pretty rotten over here in this section, but what this shadow board is doing is creating a little bit of a lip, so almost creating like a little bit of a dam, so that when water ends up flowing down this roof, instead of running off that board, it ends up getting caught behind it. And this is what ends up happening. So this is going to be evident throughout, but I want to point this part out on the roof. So you can see just how damaged all of this paper is. And so that water is just getting stuck behind this portion and just eating away at all the paper. And then it ends up going right down through the wood decking. So there will definitely be some wood repair on this project. Homeowner needs to be aware of. Wood repair is always that unknown variable on any roofing project. So it's good just to have an idea of what we're going to expect before the project gets started. I'm working my way up to the top here. We have a concrete tile roof. This concrete's in pretty good shape. There aren't a whole lot of cracked tiles on this roof, a whole lot of slip tiles, but we have a lot of water that's getting underneath the tile itself. And one reason might be is that we have all the channels on this tile lined up in a straight line. Whereas typically what we want is a good little stagger. That way when water gets underneath the channel, it'll then run over the next tile, as opposed to running straight down the channel that's underneath it, and then possibly getting underneath. So what ends up happening is you can see how damaged this underlayment is. This stuff is super, super brittle already. It's very thin. You know, I'd imagine this underlayment is probably close to 30 years old or so, but you can see how everything is cracked. And there's a lot of leaks coming from this section. The other thing you'll notice is that the overlap on this underlayment is so minimal. That right there is the decking itself. So there's about a quarter of an inch overlap on this underlayment. And so typically we want at least 2 layers of UDL 40 on this roof. What I am going to suggest when we redo this roof is we're going to actually add a layer of titanium fire resistant peel and stick. This is a huge fire zone. We want to make sure that this roof is safe. So I'm going to suggest that we upgrade to that peel and stick underlayment. But the combination of the channels being lined up, you have 0 overlap on this underlayment, is a recipe for disaster, and that's already showing itself in this section. In this portion of the house, there are a lot of leaks coming from the ceiling itself, and that's probably what's going on. So I pulled another couple tiles over here in this section just to see if the same thing is going on. And again, we can see how damaged this underlayment is. You can see how wet and moist it is. So water's not, well, it's not moist anymore, but you can see all the water marks and water stains that have been accumulating over the years. Again, this stuff is so brittle, literally just crumbling in my fingertips. So showing that water's been getting underneath these tiles for quite some time. Typical underlayment like this is gonna last close to 25 years. But when you have the lack of overlap on those layers, then it's gonna go a lot faster than it should. And that's what's happening right now. We got the same thing going on over on this section of the roof. Again, you can see all the water marks that have been coming down. And this is just a random tile that I pulled. Notice how the majority of the penetrations, the sealant around those penetrations is starting to evaporate and wear away. So now water, every time it rains, comes down these pipes and ends up penetrating the property. So based off this inspection, based off the condition of the underlayment, I am going to suggest replacing this roof. Doesn't necessarily mean that we need to replace the tile on this roof, but the paper needs to be replaced. So again, this tile is in pretty good shape. The nice thing with concrete, a little bit of a slip, I'll fix that. Nice thing with concrete is that it does get stronger as it ages. So we don't need to go with a new tile roof. But if the homeowner wants to switch up the look of this house to either a shingle roof or just switch it up to a different tile, then obviously we can go ahead and do that. You'll notice that the mortar caps are starting to go as well. The tiles are no longer adhering to the mortar itself. So all those mortar caps are going to be replaced. When we go ahead and redo this roof, we're going to tear all this tile off, get down to the wood decking. That'll allow us to address any kind of bad wood that we have on this roof, right? So going to be some plywood that's going to need to be replaced. And then again, we talked about the fascia board that is more than likely going to need to be replaced as well. We're going to go ahead and reflash and reseal all these vents. Once we go ahead and tear everything off, we're also going to be adding some exhaust ventilation to this roof. You'll notice that there is no exhaust ventilation currently on this roof. So we're going to add at least another 6 O'Hagan vents on this roof, just to increase that flow, that airflow. We want to keep the underlayment nice and cool, which will help it last a lot longer. Once all that is complete, we go ahead and, like I said, lay that layer of underlayment down. I'm going to suggest that we go with a layer of titanium fire resistant peel and stick underlayment on this roof that will come with a limited lifetime warranty. Again, you can see how all the water is going to be coming down these caps. After that, we'll add the drip edge and brand new bird stop. This home already does come with bird stop. We'll go ahead and upgrade that with some new stuff, and then also add some drip edge to ensure that the water flows off the drip edge as opposed to the wood itself. That's it for my inspection.